Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is the next video in the what and the how series of UiPath, where I am trying to answer the queries whichever I received over the YouTube comments, over my email, Instagram, or over the WhatsApp. In this video, I am going to answer a questions which I have received on the YouTube, which says that I have got a queue. That queue has got more than 100 items, maybe 200, 300 or 1000 item as it mentions, and I want to read all of that data. How exactly we can do that? Now, for some of you who are experienced developer, you might know that we have an activity which is called get queue items, but that allows us to only get 100 items. Now the question is how exactly I can accomplish this. So this is what we are going to address today in this video. We are going to start by recreating this problem statement, which means that I would have an Excel. That Excel would have some data. First of all, we are going to load that data to the queue. We are going to create a new queue in orchestrator, add that data to the queue, and then with the help of UiPath activities, I am going to explain that how exactly we can retrieve all of that data. In case you have a similar question in any of the topic, feel free to drop me a note on the comments, or you can always drop me an email with the mail ID which is available in the description. Coming to the channel for the first time and haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing to the channel to get the latest update. Having said that, let's get started. Okay, so I am back in my UiPath Studio. I have created a normal sequence which is called the retrieve queue items. And first of all, before retrieving, first I want to add the items to the queue. Okay, so I'll go here and let's see what data I have to put it in the queue. In my folder structure inside D Excel automation webinar, I have some data which is called vendor data. If you see inside the vendor data, I have a data sheet. In the data sheet, I have 334 records, right? Now the agenda here is I want to first add this data to the queue, which is more than 100, and then we are going to see how we can retrieve all of them. Okay. So to add this data to the queue, the first thing which I require is a queue. Okay. Now how do I create a queue? Let's quickly navigate to the orchestrator. I am in the cloud.uipath.com and this is the community orchestrator. In case you haven't already created an account, you can simply navigate to cloud.uipath.com, register yourself and get an orchestrator similar to this. Okay. If you notice here, I have got certain folders available here. So it is important to know that which folder are you working on, right? So I am connected to my community orchestrator and I am working on the admin folder, right? I click on the admin folder and inside the admin folder, I have something which is called queues, right? So first of all, I have got this couple of queues. I don't want to use them. I'll go here and I create a new queue. I click on this blue button at the extreme right, which says add a queue. Create a new queue. Now it is going to ask me, tell me the name of the queue, right? So we are going to retrieve the data. So I will just name a queue called retrieve data queue. Name the description something like this, more than 100, right? And yeah, spelling mistake, so I'll just correct it, something like this. Okay, now retrieve data is the queue which I have created. Apart from this, I leave everything to the default settings and I hit add. Okay, queue retrieve data is successfully created and you can see that all the items are 0, which means that I have not added any items to them, right? Now let's quickly add some items. So items are available in this guy, which is nothing but an Excel. Okay, I'll go here and I create a new sequence. I'll call this sequence as load the data, right? Before retrieving the data, first we need to see how we can add in data. In the load data, first let's try to read the Excel, right? So to read the Excel, we have something in activity which is called read range. Now, in case you are new to Excel automation, there is a full playlist of Excel automation available on the channel. I have put the links in the description so you can refer to get insights of the Excel automation. Okay, so I'll drag and drop an activity of the workbook which is called read range. Now this activity would tell me where is your workbook located, right? So my workbook located as this path. So I can simply go here, do a shift right click, and I get this option which is called copy as path. I can always use this button also to get the path, but that works for me. Okay, I have passed the Excel complete path. Now the next thing is I need to provide which sheet I want to refer, right? So because I have got multiple sheets of data, so we want to refer this sheet which has got 334 items and the sheet name is data. So I'll go here and inside the sheet name I'll simply specify data. Next it is asking me what is the range of the data. I want to read all the data, so I just put a blank here, which means that it will retrieve all the data. Now in the properties, if you see here, what is the output? The output is a data table. So best way of creating the variable is hit Ctrl plus K. I would say here dt underscore Excel data, and UiPath will create a variable for me. Something like this in the variable panel. Okay, dt underscore Excel data. One more thing, does my column has header? Yes, I do have headers, right? So I go here in the properties and I would say that add header is tick mark. Now this will read the data and get me the data in a form of data table. Before I add the data, I want to verify whether the data is correct or not, right? So I'll simply go and add an activity which is called log message activity, and I want to validate here count from Excel, and I would just say here dt Excel data dot rows dot count dot toString. This I am doing to print the information of the count which the robot is doing, right? So I simply wrote dt Excel data, which is the data table, dot rows dot count, telling UiPath to count the number of rows in the data table and print it in a variable. Why dot toString? Because it is a kind of a message and it's in the form of string, so that's why the message is a string. So that's why converting this number to a string, right? Okay, so we have got the Excel count. Now to add the data to the queue, let's go here and search something which is called bulk add queue item. Okay, I have one other option which is called the add queue items, where I would need to use a for each loop and add the data one by one to the queue. This bulk queue add items give me a privilege to load the complete data table at once, right? I already have the data table, so I have the access to use this guy which is called the bulk add queue item. Drag and drop this activity here which says bulk add queue item. The properties are absolutely simple. The first thing it is asking me, tell me the name of the data table, right? So the data table for us is dt Excel data. The next property it is asking, tell me where exactly is the queue name, right? So queue name, let's copy this queue name from here, go back to the orchestrator and paste it like this, right? Which is the retrieve data. This is a sample demo. That is why I am hard coding everything, right? So I have hard coded this and this. Whenever we are writing any real-time automation, make sure that we don't hard code anything in the automation. Everything should be coming from a config file, arguments, or the variable. In case you don't understand how do you use a config file, I have pinned a video here which you can refer after this tutorial, that how you can actually use a config file in a plain sequence or a flowchart. Okay, now what exactly this guy will do? This guy will add all these items to the queue, right? Once these items are added, I want to get notified that yes, the items are added, right? So I'll go here, drag and drop an activity which is nothing but the log message activity, and in here I simply want to say that this is the info level log, and I would say that items added successfully. Hit a quick save. I'll just go and verify that what was the count. It's 334, right? I'll save this Excel, close this, because I'm using a workbook, so it won't work if I just keep that Excel open. I'll go here and I say run the file. Okay, now we're just waiting for the automation to fire up. Once the automation fire ups, all the data from the Excel should be loaded to the queue. I have a count of 334. The execution has started. As you can see, that green indicates that the robot is running. It will read the Excel, and you can see that we have got a count of 333 and process done. Let's quickly validate the output. Okay, 333 because first row was the header and the count was 333 items added successfully. Let me go back to the queue, hit a quick refresh here, and let's see if the items are available. It might take some time to reflect the items in the status, right? So what you can do is, for the queue, you have this three dots available in front of it. Click on that and click on something which is called view transactions, right? When I am clicking on view transaction, this means that all of the items now are separate transaction in the queue, which means that any of this transaction fails or gets succeed, it has no impact on the other end, right? In case you don't understand what are transactions and why they are important, here is a video for your quick reference. Now, coming to this use case, as you can see, 333 items are added to the queue, which completes the first part of this process, right? Now, I have a queue which have 333 items. Now, the agenda here was to read these items. Now, to read this item in the process, let me go here and create a new sequence. I'll call this sequence as read the data, and I'll simply go and hit create. Now, to read the data from the queue, we have an activity which is called get queue items in the orchestrator queue, and you have something which is called get queue items. The get queue items, it is asking me, tell me where is the queue, right? What is the queue name? So the queue name is nothing but this guy, which is called, I'll just go back to the queues, and we have got this one which is called the retrieve data. Now a thing to remember here, since it is on the queue and we are connected to the admin folder, I am able to add and retrieve that because in my UiPath Studio, I am also connected to the same folder. And the next thing which I'll do is simply add the queue name to this guy. I am putting it in double quotes because this is a string. Now let's go to the properties of the get queue item. If you notice in the property of get queue items, the first thing is it says how many items you want to retrieve, right? So in the pagination option, you have an option which says the top, which means that from the queue, how many items you want to retrieve. And if you notice here, it says that the maximum is 100, right? From the queue at a time, you can retrieve only 100 items, right? So I'll simply go here and put it to 100. Which means that if my queue is having more than 100 items, for our case it is 333, if I run this automation, it is only going to give me the first 100 items. So first of all, let's try to explore more of the properties and then we'll get to that answer. In the get queue items, whenever we get the items, we get the output in the form of queue items. So I'll go here, hit Ctrl+K, and first let's create a variable to store these queue items. And I hit Ctrl+K, created this variable for queue items. If you go to the variable, you would notice that I have got a IEnumerable of queue item created for me. Fine. So what would happen? The get queue items will get the top 100 and it will store in this thing which is called queue items. Now a question arises. In the queue, you might have item of different status. Some might be in the new, some might be in progress, some might be faulted. How do you control that? For that, if you see in the options property, I have something which is called the queue item statuses. By default, this property is set to all, which means that irrespective of any statuses, I want to get all the data, right? For us, it works. For you, if you have a queue which you want to retrieve different status, just make sure to select those. And this is a multi-select checkbox, so you can tick any one of those. For example, if you want to get only the in progress item or only the new items, you can just do this, right? Or both in progress and new progress, or both new and in progress, do this. Fine. So I'll stick to the default setting, which is all. What other options I have, right? You can select a duration, you can select a priority. You can also use something which is called the filter strategy, which means that if you have any specific filter you want to get the data, you can use that, right? But for our use case, we want to get all of that data. So first, let's try to understand what exactly will happen if I execute this automation. If I simply go here and run this automation, I'll go and use an activity called log message, right? Because we want to see, right, what exactly is happening. So first I'll use an info level log, and I say that queue count, and the output of this activity is getting stored in this variable which is called QueueItems. So I simply use that variable QueueItems.count, that count the number of items in this variable dot toString. The same concept, right? Now let me quickly go here and select run the file. Now if I run the file, what would happen? This queue has got 333 items, right? And I have written a logic which is only going to extract the first 100. So retrieve queue count is 100, right? You might be thinking that why don't you try by increasing this number? Let's try it to increase it to 1000. I go here and I say run the file, right? Now I have increased the number to 1000. Let's see what happens. Okay, completed successfully, and in the output you see that the count is still 100, right? So that means get queue item activity at a time retrieves only 100 items. If you go to the get queue items and you go to the properties, you would notice that we have a property which is called the skip. Just before the top we have something which is called skip, which simply means that the number of items you want to skip, right? How many items you want to skip. This could be useful in scenarios where you want to skip any number of items, right? So for our queue, we have got 333 items. So if I simply go and write 300 here, what that would mean that it is going to skip the first 300 items of the queue and going to return me the rest of all, right? Let's see how does it work. I go here and I simply say run the file. This is important to understand the logic what we are going to build, right? So we have told UiPath to skip the first 300 items. Let me go to the output and you can see that I have got only the 33. So we have told to skip the first 300, so it only read the 33 items. Though the top was 100, I didn't have more items in the queue. So that's how this skip and this pagination work. Okay, fine. So I'll just remove this skip for a moment, and as of now we are back to the situation where we are just able to read the 100 items. Now I hope you understand the difference between the skip and the top, because these are the two things which would be important now. Okay, before we write the logic in the UiPath Studio, let's first try to understand the logic in the whiteboard, that what we are going to build. Then it would be very easy for us to understand that what just happened. Okay, I'll come to my whiteboard. Total I have got 333 records. Okay, and we have seen that we have two properties which are available. One is called skip and one is called the top. Okay, we have seen that whenever I am using this activity of get queue item, let's say this is the activity of get queue item, this activity is retrieving only the 100 items. Now my agenda is to get all these 333 items. How can I do that? Let's try to see if I have to do it without UiPath, how should the logic look like? So first get the 100 items from the queue, store it at some place, then get the item from 101 to, let's say, 200, store it at some place, then get the item from 201 to 300, store it at some place, and then get the item from 300 to 333 and then store it at some place. So this is the logic which we actually want to write, right? But how is that possible with this one? So what we are going to do is, if you notice here, this all is coming in a kind of a loop, right? So first loop the data. We have to read it in a loop so that every time we just keep reading the 100 items till the time my queue is empty, right? So for that, what I am going to do is I am going to use a loop which is called a do while loop. Now, do while loop is a simple loop where I am telling UiPath that you first read the 100 items, store it someplace. Now UiPath will give me these 100 items and store it at some place, which I have already got. The next thing is, once it is got, I want to use this skip number. So if you remember, we have this property of skip. After this is retrieved and stored, the next thing I am going to tell UiPath is that you skip the 100 items. And you would have seen that how does a skip work, right? So when it will come next time, what will happen? It will skip the first 100 and it will give the items from 101 to 200. Again, once this is done, I need to tell UiPath that now instead of skipping 100, since we have got 200, now you have to skip the 200 items. So next time UiPath will go and skip 200. So now it will read from 201 to 300. Then it will again skip the 300 and last it will read the remaining 33, right? But now if I have to ask that what should be the while condition, right? So this is, we understand that what we have to do inside the do block, right? So this we have to do. So the while condition would be simple. You keep continuing this thing till the count is 100. Every time you read the data from the queue and the count is 100, which means that you still have more data, right? So go and read that data. That is a simple logic which we are going to write in the UiPath Studio, right? So I'll just quickly revise that what we are going to do. We are going to use an active property which is called the skip and the top. Okay, top anyways is set to the default value of 100. We have total of 333 items in the queue. First, we are going to tell UiPath to read the first 100, store it at some location, then skip the first 100. As soon as it skips, when it comes to the next time, it is going to read from 100 to 200. Then once 200 items are stored, skip the 200, then skip the 300 and remaining, right? So this same logic we are going to build in the UiPath Studio now. Okay, I hope you understand this. Now let me quickly go back to the UiPath Studio and let's try to build this logic. Okay, so get queue item is giving me 100 items as we have seen, right? So the okay, so that was previous run. So I just go here and I say run the file. So I'll just quickly validate that we are on the correct track. Yep, okay, we are getting the 100 records. Now if you see here, I have told it to skip nothing, but we want that skip thing to work, right? That skip is required. Now first I'll go to the variables and I'll introduce integer variable, right? Because it's a number. So I would say that integer underscore skip is a variable which is of kind integer and its default value is 0. Why 0? Because initially I don't want it to skip anything, right? So I just go here and I can use an assign activity as well, like this, and where we say that for the clarity that the skip value is 0 at the beginning, which means that we want UiPath to not skip anything. So in the queue variables, I'll simply go here and in the skip, I pass this one, integer skip, right? That skip 0 variables. Now UiPath will go read this and get this data and the variable which is called the QueueItems.count. Now here you can actually write logic to store this data in a different queue, or you can use a simply for each loop. So I'll just add a normal sequence here, or I will, let's say, just add a comment here, right? Now once I have received this 100 items, here you are free to write any logic. This logic could be to iterate these items one by one, to check the status, to update their status, or any logic which you want to do, right? So I would just write here what we need to do with 100 items, right? This logic will differ from solution to solution. Fine. So this logic will come here. It will go take the 100 items, do something with that, and now the queue count is printed, which is 100. Now when it comes to the next time, which means that now we are done with this part, which we have got the 100 items, which is this one, and we have got this one. Now the next thing is I want to get the items from 101 to 200, which means I would need to skip the items. So to skip the items, I'll simply use this variable which is called skip, because that is already being used in this one, right? In this variable skip, right? So I'll simply go here and I'll use an assign activity here. Once these items are retrieved, I am saying UiPath that you increase the skip value, that whatever skip value you have, you just add 100 to it. Initially it would be 0. Once the 100 items are retrieved, the skip value would become 100. Now this has to run in loop. So which type of loop I am going to use? I am going to use something which is called a do while loop. In case you don't understand how does a do while work, I have a dedicated video explaining this loop. You can watch that video. I have put it in the description. Drag and drop something which is called a do while loop. I'll just drag it somewhere here, and let's put the content inside. Now inside the do, what we want to do, right? First we want to get the items, do this and do this. I'll hit Control X, all of that, and put it inside the body, right? So this is the same thing which we want to repeat, right? How do I know? If you go to the diagram, what is the thing which is repeating? First we need to get the items, store it somewhere, and increase this skip as well, right? So that is also a repeated thing which we have to do. So that part is inside the do loop, which is coming here. So now I'll just collapse this, and now what would be the condition? Repeat this condition till the count of the retrieved data, which is nothing but this variable QueueItems. QueueItems dot count equal to 100. This completes the logic. Now let's try to execute in the debug mode and see how does it behaves. Okay, so after this skip is logged, I simply want to print the value of the skip as well, right? So I simply go here and I say that skip count, and here I would say integer of skip dot toString, that print what is the skip value. Okay, and I think we are good now. Okay, so skip value would get printed here, and initially the value is 0, and yep, I'll just put a breakpoint here. Let's try to run this in a debug mode and see what do we get. Okay, I'll run this automation in something which is called a debug mode, so that we are able to analyze that how this logic works. Okay, so to use and run such kind of automation, you always have something which is called a watch panel, right? So in the watch panel, you can always go to the locals, which should be somewhere here. Yep, let me go to the locals, and I just want this variable. I'll say add to the watch. What else we want to monitor? We want to monitor the skip variable, and we want to monitor the queue items as well. Okay, yep, that's it. So you can use this one, and now let me go back to the watch panel here. So initially the skip variable is 0. We have got the retrieved count, right? So I'll go here and hit enter, hit step into. It will get the 100 items from the queue. As you can see, the count is 100 now. Now we are going to store this item. We will execute, we'll do all this logic here. That depends on your automation. And I simply go here and print the queue count. Now the queue count will come as 100. I can go and verify that in the output that the queue count for the first time is 100. Now I can do a step into, and you can see that the skip count has now increased to 100. Okay, now this is inside the do while loop, which means that now it will again go and validate the condition if the condition is true or not. Okay, so I'll go and click on step into, right? Again, it is coming inside the loop. If you notice here, now the variable, let's go to the locals panel again, and you can see here that the value of the skip is now 100, which means that now it is going to skip the first 100 items, and it has given me the next 100, right? So let's try to print that count. The printed count is 100, right? So 100 plus 100, 200 items are already with me. Now it will again go increase the value of the skip to 100. Now let's print the skip count, and you can see that the skip count is now 200. Now what are the how many number of rows I have in the queue count? In the queue count I still have the 100 items, right? So that means this condition is again true, right? So that means I need to again go and retrieve the write the same logic, right? I'll execute the same logic again. I'm going to step into in the queue. Again it is going to retrieve the data. Now this time it would have skipped the 200 items, right? So it would work from 201 to 300 now. Again it will go here, and the queue count is still 100, which means that there are more items in the queue now. I'll go and I'll again increase the skip. Now the skip is 300, right? Now the skip count is 300. Is my condition still true? Do my queue item count is still 100? Yes, my queue item count is still 100, right? So that means that this condition is true. So it will again going to execute the loop. I'll go and click on step into, and this time if you see here, it is going to skip the first 300. So I go and click on step into, and this time I should get only 33 items, right? So I'll go here in the queue items. As you can see that I have got only 33 items now, right? Because total we had only 333. Now this time the queue item is 33. Now again the same logic would work, which means that now it will increase the skip count from 300 to 400. As soon as it increases the skip count to 300 to 400, it will simply go and print the skip count. But if you notice here, this condition has become false, which means that the queue item count is now 33. If it is 33, it means that the item count is less than 100 and it has retrieved all the items. So what would happen? It will simply skip out of the process and it will stop right there. So if you can see in the output, first the queue count retrieve was 100. We skipped the first 100, then it got the next 100. We skipped the 200, it got the next 100, and it keep continuing till the time you started getting less item than 100, right? So this is the condition which was important, that queue item count equal to 100. So that is how you can use UiPath activities to read more than 100 items from the queue, right? Now here, whichever I have mentioned the comment, right? So here in the ideal scenario, let's say you are reading only the new items or only the in progress item. You want to do something with those items, right? So the output of this item is nothing but a queue item. So that means it is a list. So ideally in this location, what we do is we simply use an activity which is called for each, right? Now these are all the transactions which it has retrieved, right? First time it would be first 100, then the next 100, and here it would be nothing but the queue items only. Now in this body you are free to write your own logic, that what you want to do with those queue items. Do you want to delete them? Do you want to update their status? Any logic which you want to do you want to process them, right? All of that logic can be now updated here in this block. Okay, so that is all for this video. I would like to wrap this video here. Now I hope you understand how exactly can we read items from the queue when the queue count is more than 100. In case you have any more question on the topics or any other different question on different topic, drop me a comment or write me an email on the email ID which is mentioned in the description, and I shall try to make a video on that. Having said that, I would wrap this video here. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please do subscribe to the channel, and happy automation.